Robbie, I have a great story for you. Cannot wait to share this. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the What's Right show, powered by Sam & Ash Injury Law, the only law firm to trust for your injury case. So, speaking of attorneys, I ran into a friend yesterday. I have to be careful about how I describe this to protect his anonymity. So I run into a friend, and we are talking. We had a whole panel discussion. This was on a board that I sit on. And the panel discussion was about AI. And afterwards, we're chatting, and basically, my thoughts on it, it's going to be enormously disruptive. Not all bad, not all good, but it's going to be disruptive to every industry, and it's going to be very disruptive to law. And I made that comment. I said, it's just everything's going to change, and it's going to happen quickly. Now, this guy, he is a good guy. He's not someone, I think he's a Democrat, but he's not a foaming at the mouth Democrat. He's not a radical. He doesn't have the glassy-eyed stare. He himself is a very reputable lawyer, a high-end, polished, well-known attorney. His father-in-law is a famous attorney. His wife is an elected official. Democrat, nonpartisan office. I need to clarify. Nonpartisan office. Definitely not a crazy person, okay? The thing that came out of his mouth next, as we are talking about AI, floored me. I wasn't expecting it. Came home, had to tell the wife about it. Never believe what so-and-so said. He actually said, well, again, we're talking about AI, how it's going to be disruptive to law. And he says to me, Sam, a year from now, we're not even going to have the law based on how things are going. And I thought he was being funny, because that's funny. Like, if you think that Donaldus Maximus, because it was a dig at Trump, if you think that Trump is an assault on the rule of law, then what the hell was Joe Biden doing, or whoever else was running the White House the last 4 years? Okay, so I was like, oh yeah, okay, haha. He's like, no, I am dead serious. And he looked at me. It was suddenly like ice going through the conversation. So I said, I put my hands up. That was not the time and place for me to get into a debate. I'll tell you that much. So I did. Okay. To be continued. I think I said that. To be continued. And I walked away. And I've been contemplating, Robbie, I've been thinking about this whole time, because, of course, today we have oral arguments on a big case, the Louisiana case. This is the redistricting case. Hugely important, because the decision that the court makes on this case could cost Democrats up to 19 seats in Congress. The crux of the case is the question whether the Voting Rights Act, Section 2 of that act, if it is constitutionally permissible to gerrymander districts by race. Is it constitutional to separate, and specifically, I would use, honestly, the word segregate, districts based on the racial characteristics of the inhabitants of the district, of the residents of the district? It is current law, reaffirmed in, 22, so 3 years ago, in a separate, and this is the Robinson case, where the Supreme Court said, it got punted back down into the lower courts, and they ultimately said, this is allowed. You can, I said this to the state of Louisiana, you must carve out not one, but two racially gerrymandered districts. And if you look at the way these districts are drawn, you think, I guess if there's a black neighborhood somewhere, this is how people rationalize. I guess if there's a black neighborhood somewhere, okay, they deserve not to be cut up. It's not like that at all. You look at the map, I mean, they literally just this streak cross-section through Louisiana. It's a joke. It is massively gerrymandered, designed to give the advantage to the Democratic Party. Now, back to what my friend said. Back to his comment about a year from now, there's not going to be any law if Donald Trump gets his way, which is what he was implying. For Democrats, this is what they believe. Because the legal fictions that they have created through left-wing liberal jurisprudence over the last, call it 3 decades, 4 decades, is finally getting challenged. And it's bunk. It was bunk. Let's back up and talk about a case that was a hot-button issue, still is a hot-button issue for our friends on the left. I'm talking about Hobbs, the case that unwound Roe v. Wade. I remember years before Roe was undone by Hobbs, the Hobbs decision, that was the one that was so shocking and odious for the Democrats that they broke precedent, decorum, the law, released the Hobbs decision, the unreleased, unsigned Hobbs decision in an effort to intimidate conservative justices on the court, get them to change their minds. The whole thing was an episode, right? And it still hasn't been figured out. And, well, John Roberts, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, is responsible for that not going anywhere. I'm convinced they know who did it. But that all is an aside. The point is, if you listen to Democrats, they go, the Hobbs decision was illegal. It wasn't based in any law. It's the Republicans, quote unquote, legislating from the bench. And that's comical to me. Because before as I was going through law school, constitutional law, of course, my con law professor, Hugh Hewitt. And Robbie, you can back me up on this. Hugh is a constitutionalist. Hugh is not a rabid conservative, okay? Hugh, when it comes to the Constitution, is a strict sort of, he cares about the strict meaning of the words, right? That's the way he views the constitutional interpretation. So I remember as we were reading Roe v. Wade, and it's in the book because we're using Chemerinsky's book, so of course it's a big case. And Roe v. Wade was decided. The court came out and said there is this magic right to privacy embedded somewhere in the Bill of Rights. And it's not said explicitly, but when you combine these different constitutional amendments, if you read it all, if you throw it all into a little mosh pot and mix it together, out, voila, comes this implied right. They made something up. It was made up law. And you get liberals talking about this, and the Hobbs decision to them, the Hobbs decision corrected something that was nonsense. And the issue isn't abortion. The issue is, are we going to start making things up in the Constitution? Now, the same is true with this Voting Rights Act. Because last I checked, under the Equal Protection Clause, you can't separate people out by race. And we're having a major coming to terms on this as a country, are we not? We are scrutinizing, as we should, DEI, affirmative action. Any race-based preference, right, that is given, because race-based preference is the same thing as race-based discrimination. Discrimination could be positive or negative, but we use it typically in a negative sense. But any form of separating people out or making decisions for people based on their races is nonsense. We don't do that. And it's coming to a head. And these libs are looking at this, and their entire world is coming undone. They are freaking out. That's I mean, I get it. And oh, I've got some doozy. I need to take a quick break here. It's excuse me, Hobbs, the Hobbs decision. I always get that. Correct, Robbie. Thank you for reminding me of this. But, you know, even Ruth Bader Ginsburg agreed that Roe was bad law. So the Dobbs decision, right. All right, got to take a quick break. Robbie, I'm going to be right back, get my head straight. Also, I got to play some of these clips from today's oral arguments. No cameras in the Supreme Court, but we do have audio. And Ketanji Brown Jackson really outdid herself. Boy, you do not want to miss this. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT, the What's Right Show, brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam & Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
Let me tell you how important this Louisiana case is to the upcoming elections, the midterm elections. And I submit to you this tweet. I just saw this pop up from Gavin Newsom. Sam Mirejovsky here. By the way, Nevada's favorite recovering Californian behind the What's Right microphone. Sam at what'srightshow.com and at What's Right Sam on X, formerly known as Twitter. Newsom wrote about an hour ago, Trump is about to steal nearly 20 more seats in Congress. The Supreme Court is poised to wipe away the Voting Rights Act and eliminate representation for Black and brown communities across our country. The GOP knows they cannot win. They're threatening governors, rigging maps, and now have recruited SCOTUS, that's the acronym for the Supreme Court of the United States, to do their dirty work too. This is exactly the opposite. The only way the Democrats can win is cheating. And this isn't about eliminating representation for Black and brown people. This is about ending discriminatory practices in any shape or form as it is held and has been held under the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. Justice Thomas asked some important questions, and he is very economical with his words, right? He does not say very much. He's the fewest words spoken during oral arguments in the questions. But one reason if you look at what Thomas is getting at, Thomas believes that there's and he calls it an intractable conflict between Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which is the section at issue here, the racially gerrymandered districting section, and the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. And Justice Thomas has written in the past about this, that to the extent that the Supreme Court's interpretation of the VRA violates the 14th Amendment, it would make clear that the Constitution controls. Because again, it doesn't matter that Congress, passed a law. It doesn't even matter that it hasn't been challenged or overturned yet. The Supreme Court can still come in and go, look, the Constitution controls this. It's not the interpretation of VRA. It matters what, is in the Constitution itself, right? The 14th Amendment. So, well, the leftists out there think this is the crown jewel of civil rights legislation, and it's about to get undone. This is why they're spitting mad. And we had some real moments here during oral arguments so far today, one of which Ketanji Brown Jackson just is an absolute wingnut. She compared, if you can believe this, minority voters to disabled people. If you think I'm making this up, she brings up a whole analogy to the ADA. Listen to this.
Congress passed the Americans with Disabilities Act against the backdrop of a world that was generally not accessible to people with disabilities. And so it was discriminatory in effect because these folks were not able to access these buildings. And it didn't matter whether the person who built the building or the person who owned the building intended for them to be exclusionary. That's irrelevant. Congress said the facilities have to be made equally open to people with disabilities if readily possible. I guess I don't understand why that's not what's happening here. The idea in Section 2 is that we are responding to current day manifestations of past and present decisions that disadvantage minorities and make it so that they don't have equal access to the voting system, right? They're disabled.
Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, according to Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, is analogous to the Americans with Disability Act. Now, let me explain this. Someone who is disabled, physically disabled, let's say a paraplegic, literally cannot climb the stairs. Do we agree on this? Right? I think it's fundamentally, like objectively, a person who cannot move his or her legs cannot go up the stairs, even when they're in a wheelchair, hence disability access. I'm not here to argue the merits of the ADA. I'm just looking at it as a kind of a common sense, approach. That's the purpose behind the ADA, is to make public buildings accessible to people with disabilities. All right. Now, what? Is she saying that Black people can't vote? That they're physically prevented from voting? Now, I mean, I understand our country has history where there very much was an effort to bar people of color from voting. And by the way, that effort, if you go back and you look at the legislative history, the historical context of the Voting Rights Act, it was predominantly Southern Democrats who were engaged in this heinous, horrific process and effort. Well, I think we suddenly forget about that occasionally. But anyway, but that's not now. How can you argue that Black people don't know how to vote? And that is actually what she is saying. A lot of words, a lot of convolution, but that's the argument. It's so bad. Behind it, of course, is what Janai Nelson, arguing for the NAACP, was saying here. And this is classic. Basically, it's the job of the courts to correct people how they vote. And this is, I think, now they say the quiet part out loud.
That's right. And in the state of Louisiana, that analysis was conducted in the Nairn case. And it was clear that regardless of party, white Democrats were not voting for Black candidates, whether they were Democrats or not. And we know that there is such a significant chasm between how Black and white voters vote in Louisiana that there's no question that even if there is some correlation between race and party, that race is the driving factor.
So I see. So because I guess people of a certain race vote differently, that you have to make sure that only they are heard in certain districts? I mean, can you imagine? Why don't they racially gerrymander? Robbie, here's a question. Why don't they racially gerrymander a Vietnamese all-Republican district in Orange County, California? There's a lot of Vietnamese people there, very conservative, anti-communist, small business owners, gun-toting, freedom-loving Americans. Let's gerrymander a district. They vote overwhelmingly one way and they all look a certain way. This is so awful and it's horrific. All right, when we come back, we have a special guest here, Matt Brooks, CEO of the Republican Jewish Coalition. He was with Donald Trump in the Knesset on Monday in Israel, listening to that speech. So he'll tell us everything, give us the up-to-the-date information on what's going on. You don't want to miss it. Matt Brooks up next. The What's Right show. Well, we'll be back in a moment. Greetings, friends, and welcome back. The What's Right show, powered by Sam & Ash Injury Law, is on. Sam Mirejovsky here, Nevada's favorite recovering Californian, in the saddle, and with a good friend who is joining us from Washington, Matt Brooks. Matt is the head CEO there of the RJC, the Republican Jewish Coalition. Matt, welcome to the program.
Always great, Sam. Always great. Thanks for having me.
Welcome back from Israel. You did you fly with Trump? Did you do the Blitzkrieg tour, or did you go separate so you could get some rest?
No, as you know, since you'll be with me to celebrate, I've got my 60th birthday coming up. As even the president, who's turning 80, I can't keep up with him. They had a whirlwind trip. I mean, they literally left Sunday afternoon from Andrews. Flew over throughout the night to Israel, landed in Israel, went from the airport to the Knesset, met with hostage families, met with the prime minister, had all sorts of meetings, then gave that incredible speech at the Knesset after having sit through a whole series of other speeches before it. Hours and hours and hours, got on the plane, flew to Sharm el-Sheikh, had his multinational summit meeting with all the other Arab leaders, and then flew back home. Never once checked into a hotel, 36 hours straight, nonstop. I can't keep up with that, so I flew Air Force Brooks on United, and actually was able to get some sleep. So there's that.
Very smart, very smart. So you were, though, on the ground in Parliament in the Knesset when Trump gave his speech. Now, we played snippets of it here on the program on Monday. I thought it was immensely powerful. What was your impression of it being there?
Well, I mean, to me, and I've been fortunate and blessed. I was there when President George W. Bush spoke at the Knesset during his term. I will tell you that throughout my political career, I've been fortunate to attend and participate in a lot of very high-profile events. Nothing to me carried with it the emotional intensity that this trip had. And for me, being with the people of Israel, being in Israel at the time, you could hear sort of the collective release of just the end of this horrific nightmare from all of the citizens of Israel. As everybody, it was like, it was like the moon landing in 1969. It's like everybody everywhere in Israel was glued to the televisions, watching. Even us at the Knesset, they had TVs out. So before Trump had arrived, we could see we could see the hostages getting in the vans and being taken out of Gaza and being reunited with their families and their friends. And it's just one of those surreal things to be there at that time, but it's a time that you'll never forget. Everybody knows where they were at the Kennedy assassination. Everybody knows where they were when they heard that Reagan was shot, the moon landing, 9/11, obviously. And this is one of those seminal events, I believe, for the people of Israel, but also I know people in the States who were up at 3 a.m. watching it riveted to the television set as the events unfolded. And to be in that room, I think that to see and hear what Trump had to say, I think it was one of the best speeches, oratorically, substantively, of his presidency, either the first term or the first year into the second term. It still gives me goosebumps.
Yeah, I agree. So you're there. This is really the moment marking phase 1 of the peace deal. It's not just a ceasefire; it's a peace deal. Is it over? What's your sense of it? Is this it?
The optimist in me wants to say yes. The realist in me says that, unfortunately, Hamas is already demonstrating that they're unable and unwilling to follow through on the next phases of this. If you watch the horrific images on television, everybody accused Israel of genocide. What you're seeing in Gaza right now is Hamas committing genocide, just absolutely mass executions. And it's just a horrific bloodbath taking place. Hamas was supposed to leave Gaza, disarm. The president has made him clear that that's his expectation. CENTCOM weighed in earlier today, saying that Hamas has an obligation to disarm. But the absolute barbarism of these animals over there, for the whole world to see, makes me think that there's still work to be done to clean up this mess.
Yeah, I obviously the imagery you're talking about are just murders happening in a regular basis on the streets of Gaza, and reprisals and consolidation of power by Hamas, and it's absolutely horrific. My one very specific question here is the hostages. Hamas, have they, as of today, have they turned over the bodies of the deceased hostages yet? And are you at all concerned that perhaps there are still hostages being kept alive?
I am not. I think everything that we have and all of the intelligence that has been shared with me, and again, I'm not privy to the most classified and top secret stuff, but in my conversations with senior officials, both in Israel and the United States, I think everybody is in, pretty much uniform agreement that we got all the live hostages out. But again, it just shows how untrustworthy Hamas is. I believe that they have sent back the remains of 7 of the dead hostages, as opposed to the 28 that they were pledged to do. And now they put out a statement earlier today saying, well, gee, we don't have the other ones. That's under rubble. We need equipment. We need to find them, which may or may not be true, but it certainly seems like a convenient excuse, to raise that now, as opposed to raising it when they, signed the agreement saying that within 72 hours they would release the live hostages and repatriate the remains of those that had been killed.
Israel has upheld its end of the agreement, I believe, fully. There have been, correct me on this, I think 1,700 prisoners and then 250 sort of, real bad guys. I don't know how that exactly breaks down. I've had a lot of people come to me and tell me, Sam, that's not really a good deal. What's your take on that prisoner exchange, the hostage for the Hamas Palestinian prisoner exchange? Was it a fair deal? Was it the right deal to make? What's your take on that?
Look, I'm not going to second guess the Israeli government on this. It is, to me, the most important thing is getting the hostages back home and getting them out and getting them back to safety and ending the long suffering nightmare that Israel has gone through for the last 2 years. It's very easy for us to Monday morning quarterback and say, if we were there, we wouldn't give back any of these terrorists. And these aren't, Sam, it's important for your listeners to realize that, these aren't traffic scofflaws. These aren't people, who were in jail because they cheated on their taxes. These are terrorist murderers and people with not just Israeli blood on their hands, but American blood on their hands, who have perpetrated terror attacks that have killed Americans and Israelis and are now being returned from Israeli jails. I'll leave it to history to decide if that's the right ratio and if that's the right thing to do. My fear, though, in this whole thing is that I hope that the people who were being released have had, some sort of reformation. I doubt it, but I also hope that, this doesn't lead to or encourage Hamas or other groups to take hostages, knowing that they could easily barter and trade for prisoners who are being held in jail.
Yeah, I think that's obviously a big concern. I heard that Team Biden, when this deal was announced, said, "Aha, but wait, that we came up with that deal. Trump is stealing our deal." I don't know if you saw this, but
I did. I did.
I almost fell out of my chair. What say you?
Oh, it was a long multi linked X post from Tony Blinken that basically congratulated Trump on accepting the Biden plan, which, as you and I both know, and your listeners who are very savvy and sophisticated know, is total malarkey. To quote a Bidenism, absolute malarkey. There was never any call in any of the Biden plans for Hamas to disarm. All of the Biden plans called for Israel to withdraw 100% from outside of Gaza. Currently, Israel still is in 54% of Gaza as a security barrier. There's no way that Israel could have agreed to or felt comfortable signing off on the quote unquote Biden plan. And the only thing the only contribution to the Trump plan by the Biden plan is the word plan.
Well, I mean, just speaking as an attorney, and I said this yesterday on the show, everybody has an idea of what they want in a negotiation, but the right guy gets it done, right? I have, you could go to a lawyer and say, hey, I want to get divorced, or I want to get $1 million from the other party, whatever it is, right? And the idea or the desired result is straightforward. Getting your opponent, to come to the table, and in Trump's case, getting two sides that are in wildly different places to come to the table and to come to an agreement and make it and execute on it. That's a whole nother thing. So I laughed out loud when I saw that, and I'm sure you did as well. Quick question before we come to break, just a short answer on this. Do you trust Qatar, Egypt? I know these are different countries, right? Some of these Arab League states that have, because a big part of getting this deal done, the so-called Biden plan, getting this deal done has been to enlist Arab countries, Jordan, Saudi Arabia. Do you trust these players? I'm maybe specifically asking about Qatar to pressure Hamas and keep this, this deal, the Trump deal on track.
I do, and it's part of a broader answer that I was going to say earlier. The reason that this deal got done was for one reason and one reason only, and that was Donald Trump. There is no way that Joe Biden, with all his formulations and all his plans, and could have gotten this done. And the reason that Donald Trump was able to get it done is because he is, number one, a master negotiator. Two, he came to this negotiation with all the cards. I will tell you that the single most important thing in terms of bringing this to a resolution was Donald Trump's willingness to take out the Iranian nuclear capabilities. Once the Arab world saw that Donald Trump means what he says and says what he means, and that he is personally invested in bringing peace to the Middle East, ending the threats from Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, the Houthis, and has used American power and deployed it to achieve those ends. That's why I believe that Qatar, that's why I believe Turkey, that's why I believe Egypt, and all these countries in the Gulf will abide by it, because they not only fear Donald Trump, which is in the Middle East, by the way, fear and strength is the coin of the realm. That's if people don't fear you or feel that you are strong, then bad things happen. And right now, they know not to get crossways with President Donald J. Trump.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the right assessment, and I appreciate you sharing that. Matt, if you would, stay with us through the break. We'll have a short segment here coming up, but I would just want your thoughts on the rise of anti-Semitism, both from the left and on the right, and also our friend Charlie Kirk. I just want to get your quick thoughts on it. There's a lot swirling right now with what was Charlie thinking, in the days and weeks before his assassination, and some carnies coming out who are trying to make hay of it. And I know you have some thoughts on this. If you wouldn't mind sharing those, we'd be very grateful. Sam Mirejovsky here, News Talk 840 KXNT, the What's Right Media Network. We'll be back in a moment. Don't go anywhere. Making radio great again. Sam Mirejovsky here. The What's Right show is on. Great to be with you folks. We've got on the line our good friend Matt Brooks coming to us live from D.C. Matt, thank you for being with us. Matt is the CEO of the Republican Jewish Coalition, was just telling us about traveling out to Israel, being there at the Knesset when Trump gave his incredible speech and outlining the deal to end the Gazan war. So that was all very interesting. Now, Matt, I asked you right before the break about the rise of anti-Semitism, certainly on the left, rampant. And then I'm also seeing it, unfortunately, on the right, although to a much lesser extent. And I guess by extension, too, I think in that conversation is a question about what do you make of this, all this controversy that I think's my opinion is being ginned up by some malevolent actors who are trying to take Charlie Kirk's legacy and somehow make it seem that Charlie was calling into question his support of Israel. And so I don't know. What are your thoughts on this? I know you knew him and had communicated with him before his assassination.
Yeah, it's there's a lot to unpack there, and it's really sort of sobering on many levels. The times we live in, and sadly, you are right in that we are seeing unprecedented anti-Semitism in America in a way that I never thought in my lifetime. I thought we had that chapter of our history behind us, and clearly that door is opened up again, and the scourge of anti-Semitism is festering and oozing out, as you say, both from the right and the left. It is my job and part of my responsibility in sitting in the chair that I do as the CEO of the Republican Jewish Coalition to ensure that we push back and fight the rise of anti-Semitism on the right wherever it rears its ugly head. And so if that means that we have to go after Republican congresspeople like Marjorie Taylor Greene who are trafficking in this kind of garbage, we will do that and do what it takes to hopefully retire her. The same thing with Tucker Carlson, the same thing with Candace Owens. We will speak up, speak out, and make clear that in no way is that representative of the mainstream of the Republican Party. But it's just sad. Today we saw the release in New York of a group text chain with a group of in the New York Post, I should say, a text chain of the young Republicans from across the country, and just the disgusting, indefensible, abhorrent anti-Semitism and racism from kids today that were on this text chain who should know better and whose parents should have taught them better, to me underscores, and this is the segue I wanted to get to, underscores why the mission of Charlie Kirk was and hopefully will continue to be so vital, because we need to wage a war for the hearts and minds of the next generation in this country. You're right. I have known Charlie a long time. He has spoken, for years and years and years at Republican Jewish Coalition events around the country. I was texting with him right before his assassination. He was going to come speak at our big annual Vegas conference, the Vegas Summit, which will be the last week of October, Halloween weekend, October 31st to November 2nd. If any of your listeners want to join us, it is a star-studded, literally the entire leadership of the Republican Party. Sam, you've been there. You can attest to how important this event is. If any of your listeners want to join us, rjchq.org, come visit our website and register. But yeah, Charlie was going to come out and participate and talk about why it's important to remain pro-Israel, why it's important to combat and stand up and push back on those who are trafficking on anti-Semitism within our party.
And was your impression? I mean, since you and I know this, and I never shared this on air, so you're revealing it here. But I know you were in communication with Charlie very shortly before he passed.
Yeah.
Your impression that he was, you're hearing these reports of people purporting to claim or say that he had been somehow losing his faith in Israel, or had started to distance himself from supporting Israel. What do you make of that?
I think it's total garbage, and I think you're right. I think there's malign and malicious actors out there that are trying to use the tragedy of this event to promote their own particular point of view. As you know, in the legal field, res ipsa loquitur, right? I think it would be very highly unlikely that if Charlie Kirk had anti-Israel views, that he would want to come and participate at the Republican Jewish Coalition Summit.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. Matt, I'm going to be there. I'm going to participate. Hopefully, we can do the show from a dark corner of a back hallway. And so, if any of you folks want to come out and join that, what's the website again? Give that to us one more time.
RJCHQ.org.
Wonderful. All right, beautiful, Matt. Thank you. I'll
Thank
see
you,
you in
Sam.
DC later in the week. And I appreciate so much for you sharing so much of your time here for the What's Right show audience. Appreciate you, my friend.
Love you, brother.
Friends, we'll be back in just a minute. That was Matt Brooks, CEO of the Republican Jewish Coalition, live from Washington. I, your host, Sam Mirejovsky, will be back in a jiff. Yeah, I love that Matt just called it out and brought up the Politico piece. The Young Republican, Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT, the What's Right Media Network, What's Right show on, brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law. If you're hurt, get the right lawyer. Very, very important. 702-820-1234. That's the number to call, regardless of where you're at. Go straight to the team here at Sam and Ash Injury Law and get you taken care of quickly. 702-820-1234. Offices in Nevada and California, because you deserve what's right. Politico published a piece that I think they thought was going to be the undoing of the Republican Party writ large. And it was the text messages revealed, leaked, of young Republicans, certain young Republicans, saying some awful, horrific things. Matt Brooks, who was my friend and CEO of the Republican Jewish Coalition, was just on with us. And if you missed that great interview, I go get the podcast. If you don't have the podcast, you don't subscribe to the show, just do that. What's Right Show. Look that up wherever you get your podcasts. Find us, click to subscribe, and go back and listen to last hour. But he got it. He got right to it. He said, look, this is abhorrent. It's disgusting. It's horrible. And, I think the Democrats should take notes. Compare the reaction by, say, the Young Republicans Board of Directors, who issued a statement after the Politico piece was published. Quote, "We are appalled by the vile and inexcusable language revealed in the Politico article. They said the behavior is, quote, disgraceful, unbecoming of any Republican, and stands in direct opposition to the values of our movement." All of that is good. By the way, the Democrats said that, more or less. But very few Democrats, if any at all, certainly not Abigail Spanberger in Virginia or other high-ranking Democrats, said the following. And this is where we are different. People ask you, how are Republicans really that different from Democrats? Yes. The next line from the Young Republicans Board of Directors, and I quote, "Those involved must immediately resign from all positions within their state and local Young Republican organizations." Pretty straightforward, no? If you're writing texts like, I don't know, one of these texts, "I love Hitler," no, you don't get to be a part of the Young Republicans anymore. Now, what Jay Jones did, and again, just a quick refresher here, Jay Jones is running for Attorney General in Virginia. And he wrote text messages to someone that he knew, basically fantasizing about killing, murdering, shooting a Republican, a former legislator in Virginia, and even his kids, murdering his kids. And the DNC, everybody stands behind it. Well, this is a state issue. Well, I don't know. Yeah, what he said was terrible, and whoa, it doesn't represent our values. But nobody will tell him to drop out of the race. And that's the difference between them and us. Now, can I tell you really what my impression was of this when I saw this? It's like these are younger people, right? College idiots, disgusting, gross. And I know I'm not minimizing. These are not elected officials. None of these people are running, to my knowledge, are running to be the chief law enforcement officer of a state in the United States, right? These are, club apparatchiks, if you will, right? Functionaries within the Young Republicans, College Republicans movement. So I don't know. What do I make of this? It's disgusting. It's horrible. But it is overshadowed. It's nothing compared to an elected official who wants to be an even higher elected official, fantasizing about murdering little fascist kids belonging to a Republican in his state. That is just not the same. I'm sorry. Particularly not against a backdrop of actual political violence. Within a month of Charlie Kirk getting assassinated, for example. So that's some of it. Now, all right, I tell you, I mentioned before, just before we had Matt, we were talking about this. The Supreme Court has a busy term. They're dealing with this redistricting stuff. And, Democrats are freaking out about these 19 congressional districts that are reliably Democrat, that have been gerrymandered to hell, all under the pretense, all under the Voting Rights Act, Section 2 of that act, that allows and actually demands racially gerrymandered districts. I could very well see this Supreme Court deciding to get rid of this because it is fundamentally racist. It is discriminatory. It is unconstitutional. It's always been discriminatory. It's always been unconstitutional. And any legal theories that have supported it in the past are cobbled together with typical liberal wish think and fantasyland legal reasoning. So here we are. We're going to get this. Now, why does this matter? Because it's up against a larger backdrop of machinations before preceding the much anticipated 2026 midterm elections, on which everything depends. It matters. The election matters to us because, of course, if we lose the House of Representatives, all of a sudden the Trump agenda gets stopped or slowed down by significant efforts of House Democrats to bring impeachment proceedings, investigations, and the like. So we don't need that. The other thing is we need legislation to get passed. We need judges to get through. And that's in the Senate, of course, but still in the House, we need stuff moving along. It's hard enough getting it done with a thin majority. Imagine how bad it would be with a thin minority. Not good. Now, there's lots of things going on. You heard the Dominion story. Dominion, the voting machines, they're getting sold with huge caveats because it turns out they really were susceptible to interference. So one of the things that is going on is the Department of Justice has put pressure on Dominion to clean things up, and in the process is forced to sale. The left is freaking out because one of the buyers of Dominion now is a MAGA-aligned person, or so the allegation is. But cleaning up voter ID, all these no-name given voter IDs. You know, in California, you want to talk about voting in California? You apply for a driver's license. When you apply for a driver's license, you write on the form, you click on the form, are you a citizen or not? You just declare that. Are you a citizen? Yes or no? And if you click yes, you automatically get registered to vote, and there's no verification of it. The level of fraud that is going on in our country, in our voting system, is enormous. And it is very much the business of the federal government to get involved in this. So against this backdrop, okay, I'm going to take a quick break here. I want to take you through, even folks over in CNN, at CNN and MSNBC are getting nervous, as are elected Democrats who have always relied on this, crooked machinery behind the scenes to get their preferred candidates across the finish line. California is pushing ahead with Prop 50. That's a factor, but that, that's not going to get them very far. That just undoes what happens, evens out what happens in Texas if that passes. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT.
The Salmon Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
The sage of Southern Nevada, your favorite cisgender radio host, Sam Mirejovsky, here behind the What's Right microphone, friends. Great to be with you, as always. Okay, Sam at What's Right Show is my... Let me do that one more time, Robbie. Sam at what'srightshow.com is my email. At What's Right Sam on X, formerly known as Twitter. Find me there. Follow me, because I do periodically write some good stuff on there. So just letting you know. Okay. The left is freaking out about the midterms. That's the takeaway here. Let me tell you, there's an ad running in California, in the Communist Republic of California. And the gist of the ad, the whole kind of thrust of it is that you can stick it to Trump and vote yes on Prop 50. That's it. That's the value proposition. Listen to this.
Okay, hold on. I'm getting something here. Breaking news out of California tonight. The results are in, and voters have just passed Prop 50.
What?
This is a major blow to Donald Trump and his chances of holding on to...
Okay, they got a fake Trump in here. Quick, I'm just stopping and pausing it to describe. Trump is in the White House. It's dark. The TV is on. He's consuming fast food. He's got a picture of him and Epstein up on the little dresser. This is like liberal fantasy stuff. And now he's upset. And it's got this sort of like Mr. Steinbrenner kind of back of Trump's head as he begins to yell at the TV.
...on to power next year.
Stop the
That's right, Liz, because if he loses the House, Congress will have the power to block Trump, investigate for corruption, and even release the Epstein files.
You want to stick it to Trump? Vote yes on Prop 50. I hate California.
That's it. It's all they've got. TDS. How offensive is this to Democrat voters? We're not even going to explain to you what this is all about. You hate Trump, right? You hate him. He's bad. You want to stick it to Orange Hitler? Vote yes on Prop 50. But that's it. That's the gist of it. Okay, now, well, I'm just telling you that's what it is. Now, yesterday on CNN last night, Tom Foreman went through the states, because everybody's doing redistricting now. Number one, the 2020 census is a joke. So that was one way the Democrats cheated. A lot of these elections, the mail-in ballots, everything, all the nonsense, that's another issue. And then blue states have long gerrymandered the, Republicans out of existence. So now Republicans are going, yeah, okay, we're going to do the same in red states. So here's how it's looking. Spoiler alert, not great for Democrats.
This is what the party pickups would be for congressional districts. Republicans, 5. Missouri, 1. North Carolina, 1. Ohio, 2 or 3. Indiana, 1 or 2. Florida, still discussion down there, but that could be another gold mine for them if they tipped it even further their way. Kansas, 1. New Hampshire, 1. And Nebraska. Democrats, Utah, California, Maryland. Look at this. If you offset California and Texas, Missouri and Utah, North Carolina and Maryland, everything left over is an advantage to the Republicans.
Yeah. Okay. So, and that's, I'm looking at the math there. I mean, it's 7, 8, maybe 12 seats. Not insignificant. Okay. That could tip the power balance of the House. Now, what about this case that I mentioned last hour? What about Louisiana v. Cali? This is the case dealing with the Voting Rights Act, Section 2 of the Act, racially gerrymandered districts. What if the Supreme Court throws out racially gerrymandered districts? Then what?
And don't forget, the Supreme Court is considering what could really be the end of the Voting Rights Act, which would protect minority groups. So you don't have a state that's half black, for example, that elects only one congressional member and everybody else goes to the Republican.
Okay, wait. That does not happen. Sorry, I had to stop the tape. That does not happen. Literally does not happen. That's fantasy land. In Virginia, in Louisiana, the state where this is the issues being raised in, they have this big, long noodle of this district that they're basically capturing every black Democrat in the state and throwing them all in one place.
That would represent that population in some ways. So if that is gutted, Democrats could lose 19 seats. This would be a huge amount. But this is also a measure of how much the White House is concerned about this, because Donald Trump knows if the Democrats get the House again, there could be new investigations just like last time. There could be a new impeachment. There could be a lot of impediment to these plans that right now the Republicans in the House and Senate are letting run like a freight train.
Yeah.
Oh, so again, much like in the ad, the Democrats over at CNN are going, whoa, but Trump is really afraid. Basically signaling to people, if you want to make Trump afraid, you want to be against this. My high level takeaway here is judging based on how nervous the Democrats have been, how upset they are about what's occurring at the Supreme Court, how frantic they're getting, and the messaging and the doing just crazy. I think Trump, the DOJ, the Solicitor General, are doing a great job at unwinding the Democrat fraud machine. If they weren't, I think these people would be a little bit more chill. I was just before I was here on the started the What's Right show. I had about 20 minutes before I was on with Steve Gruber on Real America's Voice. And one of the things I mentioned, because we were talking about January 6th, and there's going to be a new committee investigating January 6th. There's been a lot of horse crap coming out about this, particularly the 30 million lines of phone data that's been it's not just the 8 senators, and now maybe as many as 13 that were wiretapped, but all of this, Republicans, people, commentators, media people, people who are in Trump's orbit, all of them got wiretapped. And so there's a reporter that caught up with Nancy Pelosi. I told Steve Gruber this before we went on air. I was in the green room, and I told him, listen, you see that clip of that reporter asking Nancy Pelosi, what's going on here? What is all this? And Nancy Pelosi snaps at her and tells her to shut up. You know what? Shut up. And in that moment, I'm watching this, right? Doing show prep. I've got it on the background. All of a sudden I see this pop up. And I realize, holy smokes, Nancy's broken character. A real Nancy came out. That's the one you get behind closed doors if you've been a bad boy. And it means they're getting nervous. The whole thing could come apart on them. First, we defeated the lawfare, right? Even before that, we go into talk about the impeachment proceedings and whatnot against Trump. Defeated. Then came the lawfare in the interregnum period, the time between the first Trump administration and the second. I hate to even call it the Biden administration because I don't think Biden administrated anything. So Trump defeated the lawfare, Republicans defeated the lawfare, fought back on it. The next phase is pushing back even further and bringing legal responsibility onto them. And based on how nervous they are acting, how nervously they're scurrying about, snapping at reporters that dare question them, fearing an actual new panel of January 6th inquisitors, this time looking into it factually. I sense there's something's afoot. I'll get more information when I go to DC. Promise you that. Hi, Sam Mirejovsky here. The What's Right show brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law. Just a quick word about what happens when you get hurt in a case. You need somebody to talk to, right? You need some advice. You don't know where to turn. You don't know who to trust. There's all these different names out there. I humbly suggest Sam & Ash Injury Law is the right place. And I had another experience here where a caller, a listener of the program, called us here at Sam & Ash, spoke to Ian. She had, an accident. It was a rear-end accident. Wasn't, a lot of damage to her car. But over time, she started to feel some pain. And she called the insurance company, and the insurance company said, yeah, just, send us your bills. And she started to do that, and then radio silence. They didn't do anything. So she calls our firm, and she said, hey, listen, I listened to Sam, love the show. I need some help. And very quickly, the same day, Ian and the team got her all set up. Everything's getting taken care of. And the best part about it, no more phone calls, right? She doesn't have to deal with the insurance company any longer. It's a huge blessing, I'm telling you. 702-820-1234, 702-820-1234. Don't wait, right? Don't take so much time and let the insurance company just run roughshod over you. Don't do it. It won't get better, I promise. Make a quick call to Sam & Ash Injury Law today and get started on getting better. Folks, I have to share here with you another clip from today's oral arguments. These are the questions and arguments that are made. First, the lawyers for each side of the Supreme Court stand up. They give their presentation. It's timed. It's very intimidating. You stand there, you've got a green light, yellow light, red light. And, your green light goes on. You have a certain amount of time to get your presentation, your argument done. Then it's over. Then the other side goes. Then it's over. And then you have all 9 Supreme Court justices, if they're there, ask you questions. Now, some justices talk a lot, and some very little. Clarence Thomas is a justice notoriously famous for saying very little, fewest number of words. Ketanji Brown Jackson, who's new on the court, talks like endlessly. She's a complete blabbermouth. And here, I have to share this with you as we talk about the Voting Rights Act that is now the takeaway. A lot of people are saying after listening to today's proceedings, that the Voting Rights Act is going to get struck down by this court based on the questions that were being asked by the justices. But here, earlier today, the Louisiana Solicitor General, Benjamin Aguinaga, who is a Federalist Society lawyer, very smart guy, gets asked by Ketanji Brown Jackson, Justice Jackson, a follow-up question to an earlier question that Justice Kagan asked. Now, I'm going to play this for you. A little bit of inside baseball, but it's always interesting to hear the way things work at the Supreme Court. She literally, in the middle of this, sort of throws out a line that sounds like, "You got to trust me, bro." This is so bad. This is so bad. Well, here it is.
I don't understand why your answer to Justice Kagan's question about, is this a compelling state interest, is no. The answer is obviously yes, that you have an interest in remedying the effects of racial discrimination that we identify using this tool. Whether you go too far in your remedy is another issue, right?
Your Honor, I think step zero in all of these cases, it was certainly step zero in the Robinson litigation, is the plaintiffs came in and said, we want another majority black district.
I thought they came in and said, we are not receiving equal electoral opportunity because our votes are being diluted.
Which is the same way of saying we deserve a second
No,
majority
it's not,
black
because that, again, just trust me on this, the second electoral or second district is a remedy that one could offer for a problem that we've identified. And the whole Robinson litigation was about identifying the problem. Is this really happening? In many, many Section 2 cases, the court says, you're wrong, you're fine. There is not an electoral opportunity being denied to you, go away. In this case, the court said, I see, I'm looking at the factors, I appreciate what you're saying, you've proven that we have this problem. And so the next question is, how do we go about remedying it?
It's not relevant. None of what Ketanji Brown Jackson just said is relevant. And she talks over, and by the way, it's fairly common for the justices to just cut in and talk over the lawyer because they need to keep things moving along. But she talks over the lawyer. She goes, well, that's the same thing. No, it's not. You got to just trust me on this. It's not. And then she goes into this long diatribe about, well, we have identified a problem. That is that black Democrats apparently can only be allowed to vote in a group. They have to be segregated from the rest of the state that they're in. That we can't just be Americans in 2025. She keeps talking about this. We need a remedy. This is the same argument as for affirmative action. Well, it's a remedy. There's not enough access. No. We are all equal. Yes or no? That's what the Constitution says. They have tried to do, the liberals in jurisprudence and the courts have tried to do the same thing to the Constitution, essentially, that the Jim Crow racists tried to do with the Constitution. Well, we're separate but equal. No, we are all equal. We're all Americans. We're all the same. And the sooner that we begin to adhere to the 14th Amendment, that we have equal protection under the law, that we have equal standing, the sooner we do that, the more quickly we will become a post-racial society, which is, last I checked, the goal. But here, the Dems, the libs, always show their hand, right? It turns out it's not about actual racial harmony. If we all get along and sing Kumbaya and life is good, then what? Well, if you don't have the race hustle and the hate hustle and the we're different, you're different, we're all in different groups, and we all need the Democrats to protect us hustle, there's really not much left for the Democratic Party, right? The same way that Jesse Jackson never really wanted to achieve a racially harmonious society, because then he'd be out of business. The Rainbow Coalition would cease to exist. And he was making millions off of it. So, didn't want that to happen. This is the same way that, the terrorists, Palestinians, whether it's Hamas or the Palestinian Authority or whoever, don't actually want peace because they profit off of the terrorism, the struggle. The more, by the way, the more you look at the Palestinian nonsense and you look at leftists in the West, in America, for example, the more you realize they're perfectly suited for each other. Until they're successful, of course, in their joint revolution, at which point the Islamists are going to kill the the white liberal leftists and it'll be over. But back to this idea of a post-racial society, the Supreme Court today now is looking at a very textualist approach to what does the Constitution say? What does it say? And it says we're all created equal. We're all equal. We all should have equal protection under the law. And that certainly doesn't mean that one group of people get to go to Harvard and another don't just because of the color of their skin. And it certainly doesn't mean that we're going to have these giant blob, black districts, and that's what it is. It seemed to be always African-American districts, big districts created for the sole express and purpose of benefiting the Democratic Party. Here's some math for you, and I'll tell you this is why they're freaking out about this. If this is the number, I've seen 19 or 12. Let's go with the lower number. If it's 12 districts, right, that disappear as Democrat districts and get added to the Republican Party, that becomes a net difference of 24. You see how that works? You deduct it on one side, you add it to the other. It's a huge swing. It's a huge swing. So there it is. And that's why you are going to hear at every turn, and this decision won't come out until decisions are released later in the term, so it's going to be a while. But at every turn, you will hear from the shrill left about how this Republicans are stealing elections, how Republicans are institutionalizing racism, how Republicans are running roughshod over the civil rights era. But an honest assessment of all of this stuff is going to result in any logical person going, no, what we actually had was institutionalized racism here for far too long. It was not constitutionally permissible. And in order for us to become the America that, let's say, Martin Luther King purported to want to achieve, all this nonsense from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, some of the stuff that has been entrenched in our laws needs to go away. So there you have it. All right, quick break. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. The What's Right show brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Wonderful to be with you. So one thing I have to say, Trump obviously coming off an incredible week. And people are seething about it, seething. And then we've got this government shutdown that's now dragging on, right, 2 weeks in and 15 days in today. And Democrats still digging their heels in. I maintain and continue to maintain it's a bad look for the Democratic Party. Not good for them. You are seeing folks start to talk about this. There's a moment, Peter Meyer, who is a former Michigan congressman, Republican, definitely not a Trump supporter. Okay, he is an anti-MAGA guy. And he was on CNN last night, and they're talking about the shutdown, the optics of the shutdown. This is what he said And it was, getting nods from people in the studio.
I don't think this is good for the Democrats. I mean, you have Donald Trump negotiating Mideast peace and flying to Egypt to oversee an agreement between Hamas and Israel. And meanwhile, Chuck Schumer is parading around the Senate, trying to stage a photo op. I mean, the split screen between actual governance of the Trump administration and just a Senate Democrats trying to figure out their message, right? Senator Van Hollen pointed out, or he called the expiring Obamacare subsidies a ticking time bomb the Republicans planted. They were introduced in ARPA, the American Rescue Plan, in 2021. I know, I was in Congress. We all voted against it on the Republican side. That was a Democrat budget reconciliation bill. It got to the Senate, and it needed 50 Senate votes. They talked about making it permanent, could not get unified Democratic support to make it permanent. It came up again in the Inflation Reduction Act. They kicked it can down the road. Again, solely Democrats voting in support of this could not get Democrats to agree to make these permanent. And now somehow, years later, it's the Republicans that are the sticking point. You were right in March, sir. Chuck Schumer should just continue to reopen the government. And right now, Donald Trump is having to take tariff revenue to support food stamp and WIC programs. He's reallocating budgets within DOD so that troops are getting paid. He's actually doing work, and Democrats are still figuring out their message.
Yeah, this is it. It's a complete clown show. Now, it's funny. By the way, I saw this Monday following the news that came out of Israel and Trump's big success. Bill Maher sat down William Macy, two big libs, on his show, on Maher's show. And Maher basically goes, hey, you can't argue with success. Speaking of Trump.
I always say this, you cannot ever deny success. You just have to give your respect, even if it's not your thing. Don't have the humility to give it up for enormous success on any level.
I agree.
Trump, not my choice, didn't vote for him, but somehow,
a lot of people did.
And he's, I can't deny the success.
I can't either.
Yeah.
And he's the president.
And he's the president.
Yes, thank you. I'll take, we will all, you and I will take our thank yous for voting for him for 3 times. We could have had this winning sooner if you guys had just gotten over yourselves. Now, is there a mass awakening that we were right and they were wrong? No, of course not. By the way, the crazy thing about Maher is he'll say this and then he'll continue to vote for Democrats. They'll continue voting for the policies that have put and brought ruin to the country and continue to vote against Trump and Trumpism time and again because they think that they know better. So that's what it is. I'm telling you, this is it is what it is. I'm telling you, this is going to be a problem. Now, it's Gutfeld Monday. He was laying into Republicans. This is what I like. I like also going after the never Trumpers, the Cheneys of the world, right? And all the insufferable people over there at the Lincoln Project. This Gutfeld. This was a rant for the ages.
If you think about it, where are his critics today? How small are they? Because I can't see them. Where is Bill Kristol? Where is Adam Kinzinger, Liz Cheney, Gavin Newsom, Vindman? Where are these people? We should do a show on Fox Nation called Where Are They Now? And just do because I want to know, how do you look in the mirror when you see, after years of mocking people who had faith in this guy, people who risked a lot of stuff to support Trump that you made fun of, the George Takei's of the world that ridiculed it, where are they? Don't you owe the people that you mocked some kind of apology? This guy is solving world peace. He closed the border. He's trying to reduce crime. Anyway, they'll find something new.
Yeah, exactly right. This is all true. Now, I think we're not going to get a mass awakening on here from the left. You could see based on the ad I played earlier in the hour where Democrats literally in California are running ads for their redistricting plan, making it all about sticking it to Trump and making Trump angry. They still are banking on TDS. But there is some semblance of people waking up, which is why I suspect it might actually backfire. Here's a woman, random American, who seems to be acknowledging that Trump is actually fixing crime in big cities and wondering aloud if Democrats ever cared. This is powerful stuff.
I'm always got to be the person to say it, and I don't want to be the person to say it. But Donald Trump has been president for 9 months. 9 months! And I'm seeing videos from Chicago, D.C., where people are like, yo, I feel safe. My kids feel safe. This is the best thing he ever did for us. So what was happening all these years that this, like literally, I've known D.C. and Virginia to have this type of going my whole life, and I'm in my 40s, okay? Almost touching it. So what was really truly going on? If a mother became president 9 months ago and cleared that shit out with just a flick of the pen, I'm just thinking, like, did y'all really ever care?
Did you all ever care? Speaking to the Democrats. And the answer is, whether it's the Voting Rights Act, whether it's crime, whether it's the economy, whatever it is, whatever the issue, the only thing the Democrats care about is political power. They don't care about Americans. They don't care about any of the people they purport to care about, just about power.